My standards for extreme metal have changed. I'm no longer separating the art from the artist for certain bands. Hello, Wheels of Mercury here, and today's video is going to be a little different. I'm going to talk about safer metal alternative albums that are, to my knowledge, free of very bad people, people that harbor very racist ideologies and all that, are not connected to any of these releases, fortunately. I feel like the metal scene has a little bit of a problem with being a little, shall we say, kind of lackadaisical as far as separating art from artists. Some people take it a little too far, and I can't support that anymore. I'm going to talk about bands that don't screw around when it comes to, linking up with the right people and playing to the right crowds and playing to crowds that don't tolerate that crap anymore, especially in black metal. I'm going to talk about that at the end of the video. So let's get into safer metal alternatives. Oh, and just a heads up, this is a spiritual successor to a video I did 2 years ago called Alternative to Controversial Black Metal Bands. I'll have the thumbnail up here with the top half of it censored because I don't want to give any NSBM band any attention anymore. I'm done with that. If you don't know what NSBM is, oh my sweet summer child, I envy you because it is not good at all. I'm going to talk about that at the end of the video in a sort of a mini rant. So let's just talk about safer metal alternatives. I have a lot of categories to go over, and just because I say Swedish or Finnish or Ukrainian, that doesn't point to where they're from necessarily. That points to the sound which they're trying to emulate that have been made more famous by bands with sketchier reputations than any of the bands I'm talking about. So we're basically doing sounds that have been made more famous in the 90s and early to late 2000s by sketchier bands. So we're starting off with the Swedish melodic black/death metal sound. So this is a very melodic sort of sound in between melodic black metal and melodic death metal. Lots of tremolos, lots of very catchy melodic lines and snarled vocals. The first band I'm talking about here is Vinterland. I remember checking out Hello Inquisitor's list back when it was working. What she said for Vinterland was she couldn't really find anything that was suspicious about them. So that's cool. The one album, I forget what it's called, it's probably going to be right by my head here. It's a great album. I actually listened to it this afternoon as of this recording. And it got all the hallmarks you need, minus the whole baggage of listening to a band that begins with the letter D. Next up is Gudsforladt. This is a more raw take on the melodic black metal sound with touches of dungeon synth interludes. Check out their album Something About Vows of Friendship and Love. I'll have the album right next to my head. It's very raw, but it's a good album. Next up is Volcandra, and I recently went over their new album. It's pretty good, but I also like their EP from 2020. They are from Louisville, Kentucky. Yeah, Volcandra. Hekseblad, who I just listened to as of this recording this afternoon. They are a Witcher-themed black metal band, The Witcher by Andrzej Sapkowski or whatever his name is. The fantasy novels, fantasy video games, and a Netflix show. Yeah, they're total nerds. But I really like the sound. I mean, they started off raw, but their new album, which is gonna come out in 2 weeks' time as of this recording, is getting more into that symphonic black metal sound / melodic black metal sound. Yeah, they do it pretty well. Vorga is the last one I have here, and they're from Germany. Yeah, they are sci-fi black metal, and I like their new album too. It's very much inspired by sci-fi, and they have cool corpse paint, which is very bioluminescent corpse paint. Pretty cool twist on an ancient black metal tradition. Next category is what elitists like to call the Norsecore sound. Bands like Dark Funeral and all that do the have like the machine gun sort of drums, just sort of like really blast beats all the way through. So what I've got in this category that's safe and basically fascist free is Trespasser. One of my favorite albums of last year is by the Swedish band Trespasser, who have a very aggressive sound, and they are inspired by the writings of Necrowretch, the anarchist Ukrainian leader. The second and final band that I have in this category is Necrowretch. They are a black and death metal band that is more on the blackened side than the death metal side. I really like their sound too. Their latest album, Swords of Daihal, is a really good album that I forgot to mention in my latest video. Now, the Finnish black metal sound, which is raw but melodic. We're actually going to start with a band from Finland called Havukruunu. And they were my first ever Finnish black metal band I got into. Apparently the guitarist has a sticker is against fascism on his guitar, so that's great to see. They are a great band. All three of their albums are awesome, but I particularly like their first record. Yeah, they play an awesome Finnish black metal style with pagan overtones. Next up is Spectral Wound from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. They also play a raw, sort of Finnish-inspired melodic black metal sound, and they're very good at doing it too. I really love their song Frigid and Spellbound from their 2021 album. I think that's a great song in black metal. One of the best black metal songs of the 2020s so far. It's got a very catchy guitar riff again. It's just very well written if you can get past the rawness of the production. Next up, we're going back to Finland with Kaikkivaltias. And this is kind of a left field sort of pick that's very ambient and kind of avant-garde a little bit, but it still has the Finnish sound. Yeah, he's against fascism too, so that's really cool to know. Next up is the American band Inexorum. They are a very good melodic black metal / melodic death metal band. They could have been in the Swedish category, you could argue, but they have a great sound, and one or a couple of their members are in the band Obsky, or Obsequiae, or however you say it, who are going to come up later in this video. And last up is Empyrean Vessel. Now, this band has the Finnish sound, but it mixes it with depressive black metal and lyrics that remind me of Boa Vapas Evil Bman, who are also going to come up later in this video too. The Ukrainian black metal sound. More of a sound that is sort of raw, but like very long form, very melodic, and kind of melancholic too. The first two bands on this list actually play the Ukrainian black metal sound are actually from New Jersey. Death Fortress play a sort of aggressive Ukrainian black metal sound, influenced by a certain band. And final Eclipse, which is the band that sprouted off of Death Fortress after the guys broke up, is influenced by another Ukrainian black metal band that shares members with the other one that I mentioned earlier, but not in name. If you know the band, you can kind of figure out where they're coming from in terms of sound. So, and last up is a band that actually comes from Ukraine. They came from Visions, who are very much influenced by the second certain band, but they also are influenced by folk horror stuff like the Wicker Man and stuff like that. So they have a very atmospheric but raw sound as well. Next up is the Polish black metal sound, which is evil, melodic, but also has declarative vocals. The best example I could find of Polish black metal sort of sound, not necessarily from Poland, but has the Polish sound without all of the fascist baggage, is Est Deus, the side project of Noise from Canonenfiber, and he is from Germany. The latest album is based upon a certain Polish band in sound too. It has all that characteristic of that certain Polish band without, any of the baggage. Yeah, Est Deus, great one-man project. Now this one I am not completely sure if it's sketchy or not. You can let me down below if I'm right or wrong about this, but Mānbryne are also pretty good too, but I don't know if they are sketchy or not. This next one though, I know is not sketchy. Andracca, and they are on Vendetta Records, which I'm going to talk about at the end of this video. Stay tuned. So they are actually from Britain. Yeah, they play like a sort of style of black metal that's very brittle, very compressed, very kind of dirty sounding. Do you get my drift? Next up is Sisyphean, who are from Lithuania, and they are on Transcending Obscurity Records, a record label from India. They also play that sort of style. They even dabble in electronic music in the start of their album Colors of Faith, which is a great record. And the last band I actually saw live open up for Wolves in the Throne Room, Gaerea, who are from Portugal. And these guys have a little bit of sludge and a little bit of metalcore thrown in with their black metal. If you're not afraid to embrace some metalcore isms in there, yeah, like check out Gaerea. They were the best band out of that whole tour package with Wolves in the Throne Room, Black Braid, and Host. They were the best band out of them all. Next up, the ritualistic black metal sound, having chants and stuff like that in their music, basically, and long crescendos and descending compositions. Vapas, Bronze. Now, I've talked about them in my last full-length video, and they are one of my all-time favorite black metal bands. They're from Denver, Colorado, and they have a very long-form, slow-burn sound that takes a while to grow on you. I admit, their first record took a long time to grow on me, but it's become one of my favorite black metal records ever. A band cut from a similar cloth is returning, and they have a more condensed version of Vapas, Bronze's sound. They are very good as well. They have some elements of, I think, like screamo and all that. I'm not very well versed in that sort of genre, but that's what my ears hear anyway. Yeah, and shout out for putting their codes on the Running Anarchist Black Metal subreddit. I'm not on there anymore. I appreciate them putting the Bandcamp codes. That's how I got the album, through the Bandcamp codes. So thank you very much. Next up is the Bman influence sound. Oh boy, you probably know who that was referring to. Anyway, this can be atmospheric and or depressive black metal. Starting with a band everybody knows in the black metal fandom, Wolves in the Throne Room. I saw them live in Toronto. Let's just say I want to see them outdoors instead of indoors the next time I see them, because there was way too much smoke in there. But I really like the atmospheric kind of nature-inspired style of black metal. And they've been very influential towards the American scene. Next up is Est Deus. This guy was probably one of the earliest black metal projects influenced by, the Evil Bman. To his credit, when he found out that his main influence was a murderer, he was really taken aback and hurt by that. He put his own stamp on that whole sound and made it his own. He's made ambient albums, he's made black metal albums, they're all focused on one season, winter, and except for his latest album, that's more like Darkstorm. The only sort of mark against him is that he was kind of a conspiracist about the whole COVID-19 thing during the pandemic. But that's a non-issue for me, since the pandemic is basically in the rear view window. It's still happening, but it's not as big of a deal as it once was. So, yeah, that's basically a non-issue for me. Yeah, Est Deus. Great project. Next up is Ethereal Shroud. This project mixes atmospheric black metal with funeral doom metal, and in a very, very amazing sound. They Became the Fallen Ash is an amazing album, and the last Ethereal Shroud album, Trisagion or however you say it, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, Ethereal Shroud is a great funeral doom metal / black metal hybrid, and you should check them out if you haven't already. Next up is None, and they are depressive black metal. They're very much influenced by the Evil Bman. They've even covered one of his songs from his ambient album. But, they keep it about the music. They never, they never show their faces. They never show triggering imagery for their album covers. It's all just landscapes, which I'll show beside me. They are my personal favorite depressive black metal band, and for good reason too. Last up is ASCII. Now ASCII is a great band too. It's a one-man project as well, but it's a live band too, from Denmark. And I really like the one album with the very, very sad painting with the man and his wife dying, or the wife and his man dying, something like that. Anyway, it's a very sad painting. What I like most about them is there was a country that tried to ban gay marriage or something like that. I forget. And the guy from ASCII did a very nice thing by putting these stickers that was ASCII in the color of the gay pride flag. That's awesome. That's cool. The dissonant death / black metal sound. Jute Geit. This guy's music, his name is Adam Kalmbach, is dizzying. It's absolutely dizzying. He uses microtonal scales and it is just wild. It'll probably take your brain like a year to figure out what the hell's going on with his music, because it's so complex. He has donated a lot of his earnings from people on Bandcamp supporting him to stuff like abortion funds and in the States and stuff like that. And that's really cool. Next up, Victory Over the Sun. What an amazing project. Vivian Tylenka is a genius. She's incredible. I love the new album, Dance You Monster, to my soft song. It's just an incredible record. Next up is Krallis. These guys, like Wolves in the Throne Room, have been a big influence on the American extreme black metal scene. Except these guys are very dissonant and very, very challenging. They change their sound from release to release. They never really stay in the same sound for too long, but they're always challenging. They've done stuff like switch the instruments for one album. They've done stuff like recording vocals in a car during the pandemic. They've done wild stuff like that. It's all great. Krallis is a band I I had heard of, but never really got into until recently. Next up is Kevadra, who is from Greece, and I really like his EP, which is in Greek, and I'm not going to say it because I don't know Greek, which is really good in 2021. But as of this recording, he just put out a new album last Friday, and it's really good too. Super, super good. It might be one of the best death metal albums I've heard all year. Yeah, so Kevadra, he's really good too. Convulsing is another dissonant death metal project, this time from Australia, and he has this sort of very vicious black and death metal sound. On every release of his, he's covered Porcupine Tree, so he must be a huge fan of that band. And his latest album, I am going to talk about in the upcoming Releases I Loved video for the spring of 2024. The new album by Convulsing is just awesome. Two projects, Kevadra and Convulsing, both dissonant death metal, both awesome, and both highly recommended. So next up is the historical / avant-garde French sound, and I think the greatest example of a non-fascist version of that style is Pensée Nocturne. They are sort of a circus-themed French black metal band with accordions and stand-up bass and a very la 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 sound. On their latest album, they even have a song making fun of the problematic band that they were influenced by sonically. And I read the lyrics, and they're very, very a sick burn against the leader of our band. He's a complete asshole. I'm glad Pensée Nocturnes are alright, and I'm glad they have some self-awareness to make fun of neo-Nazis like the guy from that certain band. Ungfell. They are a band from Switzerland. And early on, they had a logo that was very, and I put it beside my head, that was very telling of who they were inspired by sonically, but not lyrically. And then, they changed it, but they kept going on the folk / black metal path inspired by Swiss folk tales and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. On the back of their newest record, they have a disclaimer that they don't really like working with Nazis or communists. So that's good enough for me. So I had footage to go along with it, but I accidentally deleted it. So we'll have to go with audio only for this. Anyways, while I was on Facebook the other day, I found this awesome statement from Ungfell's Facebook page, and that made my respect for them go up like 10 times higher than it had originally. So, great job, Ungfell. Well done. Let's go to Japan with Psy. Psy is a weird band. It's like blending like black metal with like blues rock and like piano and kabuki theater and really interesting stuff. They have some really weird transitions and stuff like that. That make you go, what the hell did I just listen to? What the hell is that? Yeah, they're very WTF. But, very unique, man. They're pretty good. I mean, the only black mark will probably be working with Ritualistic, but I'm gonna give that a pass. Cause everybody worked with that doofus back in the 90s, whether through his label or through him or both. He was kinda unavoidable in that whole inner circle of black metal. Doldrum. These guys are interesting. They sort of talk about American ghost stories from the 1800s, but their sound is also reminiscent of a band like Vedbu and Vende with screamed vocals instead of, the weird voivod-esque clean vocals they do. Yeah, it's very unique. The Knocking, the debut album from a couple years ago, I think, is a very unique album that I forgot to talk about on Wheels of Mercury when it got released. But I re-listened to it recently, and it's very, very good. You should check out Doldrum. Obstakai. This is a medieval black metal band from the US. I'm sharing members with Inexorum, who I talked about earlier. Tanner Anderson is the leader of the group, and he is best friends with Austin Lund from Panopticon, which I will talk about later too. And they have like harp interludes and very medieval style, almost In Flames style riffing in there. It's actually strangely calming for a melodic black metal release. It really is. Very unique. Like you're looking at a castle in ruins and then thinking about the Middle Ages. Like it's really cool. Last up, we're going Yeehaw territory with Wayfarer. They are a Wild West inspired black metal band from Denver, Colorado. And they share members with Blood Incantation as well. Just imagine if like an atmospheric black metal band was inspired by John Wayne and spaghetti western movies. And you pretty much kind of got what Wayfarer is going for. It's pretty cool. The latest album is probably the best realization of their sound. I do not think it's the best Wild West inspired black metal project that got released last year, but it is the greatest realization of their sound, and it's definitely worth a listen. American Gothic it's called, by the way. Next up is the blackened folk metal sound. We're starting off with a band that a lot of black metal fans either love or hate, Panopticon. One of my all-time favorite black metal bands. I love Austin Lund. I love what he represents. I heard he's a very nice guy. Great dad, too. Judging by his song, the 20-minute song he made for his son when he was in the hospital. His sound exudes such positivity and hope that even through the darkest days, a light will shine through. And that is powerful. And his blending of banjos and Americana elements and like country elements with atmospheric black metal, he started a trend with that. He was such a genius for doing that. Next up is, well, Ungfell, but I already talked about him. So let's go on over to a band with a similar name called Feld. This is a black metal band that has violin in it. They got a very fiery sort of sound too. They've got lyrics about ecological destruction and stuff like that. So they're very environmental conscious. Black metal with violin. Really good. Another black metal band that has violin but takes the lyrics in a more anarchist direction is John Wade. Man, rest in peace to that band because they soldiered through all the bullshit and everything, and they do not deserve the hate they got. And I really love their messages of standing up against fascism. I really agree with their messages, man. The only thing I don't like is that they never had a bassist when they played live, and that kind of bugs me because I feel like a bassist would have filled the sound out even more. I really like their 2019 album. Their final album from last year wasn't as good, but it was still solid. Yeah, it's just such a shame that John Wade broke up. I'm still sort of torn over it. Rest in peace to those guys, and I hope that they go on to other musical endeavors. Last is Eclipse. I've talked about them in my quarantine video during the pandemic. That's how I found them. And they have cello in their sound, so they're really good at integrating it into their like black and doom metal sort of sound. They're very good at it. They're also very good at neofolk too, with their album Hymns of Collapse, which was released on the same day as their other album, Overtures of Uprising. Yeah, they have a very great sound and a very beautiful sound at times, and yeah, Eclipse, a great band. Next up is the progressive black metal sound, and we'll start with the band a lot of people know of when they think of progressive black metal, Enslaved. These guys have been going for like 30 years at this point, putting out album after album after album of awesome material, from the Viking days and the early material to the progressive days and the later material. They're very consistent, and I'm really starting to get into them to fill the hole left by a certain band from Ukraine I'm not going to mention anymore. If you haven't heard Enslaved, what are you waiting for? Next up is the other band people think when they talk about progressive black metal, and that is Vorga. Now, Vorga is a great band too. They're probably a little bit more accessible than Enslaved by the fact that they have incorporated clean vocals as early as the 1997 album, I think. They were ahead of the game. And every song I've heard from them has been great. And they're a band I am willing to explore their discography, because I think my love for them is only going to grow from here. So yeah, Vorga. Again, what are you waiting for if you haven't listened to Vorga? Go do it. Last up in the progressive black metal sound category is Norsecore. Now these guys have only one album to their name so far, but it's very Opeth inspired progressive black metal sound. It's very flowing, and the sounds are has a very ebb and flow sort of style, which sort of fits with the theme of being lost out at sea. I really like their album, Illusions in the Wake. It's a very, very good black metal record. Norsecore. Check them out. Next up is heavy metal inspired black/death metal. Specifically being inspired by the riffs and guitar solos and guitar melodies of Iron Maiden and Running Wild. Virtualistic. They are a Finnish/American band who are on Nameless Grave Records, and they have a very melodic, but like not too melodic, and they're inspired by heavy metal. But you could also argue that they sound like Dismember a little bit too. Auriferous Flame, which is the Spectral Wound side project, but specifically his 2023 album Artist for Black Mastery, has insane riffs that would arguably be up there with Rock and Rolf's riffs from Running Wild, as far as being so fast and complex that it's a wonder his wrist is still alive. Next up is The Chasm, Daniel Colchado's death metal projects, which if you know the underground, you probably heard of The Chasm, but for those who don't, check out their album Procession to the Underworld, or however it's called, Procession to the Infraworld or Underworld. It's a really good album to start off, but all their albums are great. He's very much got his own style of death metal. And last up is Dragcon, featuring Brandon Corsair, the label owner of Nameless Grave Records. They play a very heavy metal inspired death metal sound with kind of a Greek black metal sort of twist in there too. Check out their 2020 album, At the Crossroads of Infinity. It's very much got riffs inspired by Veritron, Manila Road, and bands like that. The psychedelic black metal sound, Arandi Pazuzu. Now these guys are from Finland, and they have very, very shape-shifting sort of sound. They used to kind of be more black metal meets like stoner metal sort of style, but then on their latest album they got way more weirder. Next up is Rune, which is the side project of Falls of Roro's guitarist, I think it is. Yeah, that's also really good as well. Silly/goofy black metal. Yeah, there are black metal bands that don't take their shtick too seriously, and thank God for that. First up is Old Nick. Old Nick has got these video game synths and sort of Monty Python campy energy going on. That also goes for his side project, Curtain Wall and Bloody Keep. All three of them are great. With Bloody Keep is probably the most straightforward of the three. The cosmic or space-themed black metal sound. Mare Cognitum, very, very good atmospheric black metal focused on the Cosmos, and his buddy Spectral Wound. I'm not completely into Spectral Wound. I never could get into his sound, but I know people like him too. Aravu, who I just listened to at the time of this recording this afternoon, he is very much inspired by Melodic, Fascism, which is a little more electronic / dance inspired, and Oriole, who are from Ukraine, is the sole project of Vorga. Wasn't really impressed with their sound, but you might like it more than me. Check it out! They did do a split with Melodic, so you might like it more than me. Black metal mixed with other genres like crust punk, post-punk, etc. I will be remiss if I didn't mention Iskra. They were one of the very first, not the first, but one of the very first red and anarchist black metal bands. I don't like them, but you might like them more than me. Ashenspire, who made my favorite album of 2022, Hostile Architecture. Holy crap. That thing is incredible. The only black mark against them is that their bassist played in a band that was on a label run by sketchy people. It doesn't reflect on Ashenspire's lyrics or anything, so sometimes you can't win, right? Prosperity Gospel, who have like a post-hardcore inspired black metal sound, or kind of, how to explain it, kind of like post-metal kind of vibe, like ISIS the band if they made black metal. Jodeswit, who have made my favorite black metal album of this year so far. Holy crap. Them adding heavy metal harmonies to the crust punk / black metal style is just such a stroke of genius. If you haven't heard Nocturnal Will by Jodeswit, go check that thing out. It is phenomenal. And last up, God Mage's Spell Piercings album, which, get this, blends black metal and nu metal together. It's like Korn fronting a black metal band or something like that. It's pretty wild. If you're not one of those stuck-up elitists, I think you should give this thing a whirl. It's pretty fun. Last up is the War Metal Sound. Antichrist Siege Machine. My favorite war metal band. They are freaking awesome. They're just two guys, a guitarist and vocalist and a drummer. They just freaking kill it, man. I can't wait for the new album to come out soon. And I really like their debut album, Purifying Blade, too. Prehistoric War Cult, who I really like as well. They are anti-fascist. And that's good enough for me, man. Alright, so we're getting into the recommended anti-fascist black metal labels list. First up is Fired Productions, who give, I think it's like 10 or 15% of their proceeds away to charities for animal welfare and animal rights. Pretty awesome. Vita Detestabilis Records, who follow my profile on Bandcamp. Thanks for that. True Cult Records, who is a really good anti-fascist label. Grimestone Records, who is the record label of Abysmal Spectre from Bloody Keep, Old Neck, Curtain Wall, etc., etc., etc. Vendetta Records, who don't screw around either. They're from Germany. They don't screw around when they sign black metal band. Room Recordings, who are the record company run by Austin Lund of Panopticon. They're pretty awesome. And from Toronto, the only record shop I've visited, Fusark Records. I was having a conversation with him the other day on Facebook about there was this co-release he was going to put out with Satanist Records. And without his knowledge, a sketchy label from El Salvador was gonna be attached to it. Unfortunately, the sketchy label was also an NSBM label. This was well against his code of ethics, and I don't blame him either. I would do the same thing if I was him too. So he notified one of the guys from Satanist Records, and they kicked that record label off. That's awesome. Thank God for Fusark Records. I have respect for him, man. I'm gonna go up and buy some stuff from them the next time I go up to Toronto. Okay, the recommended anti-fascist compilation. Black metal is Klassenkrieg, which was put together by the Anti-Fascist Black Metal Network, a great YouTube channel that you should check out if you want your black metal sketch-free. I'll link the channel down below, and I'll also link all these compilations down below too. Black Metal Rainbows gives money to LGBTQ charities. That's really cool too. And lastly, Black Metal Against Blacko. This is in support for innocent Palestinian people, so I'm not going to say too much more than that. There are a lot of other bands I could have mentioned that don't screw around when it comes to, you know, not playing with Nazis and all that. Yellow Eyes, Bury Them and Keep Quiet, Feminizgul, Feminizer, Lost Tag. There's quite a few that I missed. Woe is another one, W-O-E, Woe. This has been a long time coming for me. After I did the previous video on the topic, I kind of got into some of these sketchy bands, unfortunately, that went against my personal morals as a person. I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of it at all. Live and learn. Right? Just to add a clarification for those who are listening to my video podcast via YouTube Premium or listening to it in the background, just in case they missed the text at the bottom of the screen, I ignored the lyrics of all of these sketchy bands when I used to listen to them, because I knew they were singing about or shrieking about awful conspiracy theory stuff that is just very dangerous. I don't know how the reaction to this video will be. I'm predicting it being 60-40 or even 50-50 split down the middle. I know some people will probably call me whoa, but you know, I'll take that as a compliment, you know. And this kind of ties into my next issue of the point of YouTube is bringing up such bands. I don't take issue with people bringing up those bands if they know that they are problematic and if they can admit they are problematic. That's why I still watch Metal Trenches, and that's why I still watch Liam from the Death Through Metalhead. Shout out to both of those guys. What I do take issue with is when YouTubers don't even acknowledge the problematic qualities of those bands. They basically just hand wave over the dangerous qualities of the awful, terrible rhetoric. I'm not going to name names, but I know a couple metal YouTubers that do this. And they wear their merch, they even go to like countries like Finland to even support them. That's not cool. If you are sick and tired of certain YouTubers in the metal scene still propping up neo-Nazis and shit like that, press this like button and give me a subscribe and ring the bell for notifications so that YouTube algorithm notifies me that I exist. Rock on, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.